I'm Alan Weiss, and this is The Writing on the Wall. Welcome back to The Writing on the Wall. I'm going to give you right now a 12-step program. No, it's not about Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't make light of them, by the way. I believe the 12-step program works. However, this 12-step program is about how to write a successful proposal for a commercially published book. That is a book put out by a publisher, not self-published. I've helped literally thousands of people do this. I sell it in programs, I work with people and help co-write books. I'm going to give it to you here in the next 10 minutes. And so, follow along. You can always replay this. The first step is what's the value of the learning you want to provide? So, do you want to provide better ways to run an accounting practice? Do you want to provide better ways to price professional services? Do you want to provide better ways to sell to the healthcare industry? What's the value of learning? Number two, who's your ideal reader in that case? People who tell me, oh, this book's for everybody, I turn off. You have to have an ideal reader because that's what your book has to be architected around. And that's what publishers want to see, an audience large enough and meaningful enough to support investing in a book. Number three, title and subtitle. These are working titles. A publisher can change a title. I'll tell you something very quickly. My franchise is $1 Million Consulting. And my fourth book, not my first, my fourth book was $1 Million Consulting. And it was called at the time Confessions of a Consultant, and how you can learn from a consultant what that consultant had found in big business. Confessions of a Consultant. And it was rejected 15 times. And I was riding back in my car from a speech in Hartford, Connecticut, here to Rhode Island. I had one of the first car phones in New England in this car, and it rang. And it was my agent. And he was in New York with McGraw-Hill, at the time, the creme de la creme of publishers. And Jeff says to me, Alan, they want to talk about the book. I said, Jeff, they like the book? He said, no, they hate the book. I said, Jeff, do you know what this call is costing? He said, they want to know how an individual can make $1 million as a solo. Can you write that book? I said, in 6 minutes. He said, I'll tell them 6 months. We got a deal. And he got me a $25,000 advance. Well, I wrote the book. It's about to go into production, and at the time, the editor of these books, Betsy Brown, at McGraw-Hill in New York, calls me in to see her. And I sat down in her office. She said, we're ready to go. We're starting production tomorrow, but we don't have a title. I said, well, she said, no, it's not Confessions of a Consultant. It's a different book. So I got up, and I said, I'll go. She said, sit down. We need it now. I said, Betsy, it's about how to make $1 million consulting. She said, that's your title. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. The title and subtitle, working titles, so at least you can have something to focus on. The next, you need an annotated table of contents. What that means is this. You have a table of contents which shows 8 or 10 or 12 chapter titles. Generally these days, publishers want about 150 double-spaced pages. Used to be 200, no more. And so 150 divided by 10 chapters is about 15 pages a chapter. You know, you can do the math. But say 8, 10, 12 chapters, double space would be what you're looking for. A title for each chapter, and then 4 subpoints. And then 5 sentences of paragraph for what they're about. So if your chapter is about the importance of value-based fees, subpoint number 1 might be getting away from hourly billing. Subpoint number 2 is, say, educating the buyer. Subpoint number 3 is how to create the proper invoice. And subject number 4 is how to make sure you're dealing with the real buyer. Doesn't matter, just make up what you want under there. You probably have a dozen good ideas. Don't look for perfection. And then the final paragraph would be, this chapter will teach people why value-based fees are more effective for them and more effective for their client, and how to move existing clients to value-based fees, and how to only propose value-based fees to new clients. That's what it looks like. So your agent or your acquisitions editor has a very clear idea. Title, subpoints, paragraph of explanation. Next, write the introduction to the book. I suggest a page and a half. The introduction is not for the publisher, the introduction is for the reader. And so what you want to talk about is why I wrote this book, we already know that, what you should get out of this book, which will follow, table of contents, and how to use the book. In other words, can you read it in any order? Is there a manual in the back? Is there an online appendix planned? And so forth. So that's your introduction. The next one is optional. You could have a foreword written by someone else. Again, this is 2 or 3 pages. I've written forewords for a lot of people. It's nice to have a foreword written by somebody recognizable. They don't have to be globally recognizable, but somebody recognized among the ideal reader whom you're seeking. Business leader, authority, academic, whatever. Next, you want a competitive analysis. Go to Amazon and pick out 6 to 8 books in your genre. And what you do is you list, don't read them, you list the title and subtitle, the author, the publisher, and the year of publication. Title, subtitle, author, publisher, year of publication. You write 1 paragraph, 5 sentences, on what the book does. Don't badmouth it. Write about what it does. And then in a second paragraph of about 5 sentences, you write what your book adds to the discussion. Now, you want recent books published in the last 5 years or sooner, and you want some successful books. You don't want to say none of these books are any good, mine will be great. Well, if nobody's buying the books, there's no market for them. So, competitive analysis, 6 to 8 books in the genre, the title, subtitle, author, publisher, and year of publication, a paragraph of what they're about, a paragraph of what you add to the discussion, fairly recent books, don't badmouth anybody. Next, you want your marketing platform. Your marketing platform should be how you can help sell 10,000 books. That's what publishers want to hear. They're very expense conscious. So it might be 8,000 books or 12,000 books, but just be realistic, have a mechanism. Don't say, well, I'll put this on social media. Say, I've got 10,000 followers on social media. I'm going to make them a free offer to come to a free Zoom session, and I expect I'll get 2% sales. So 10% of 10,000 is 1,000, 1% is 100, that's 200 books. You have to be conservative, but you have to use your imagination. So for example, I attended Rutgers University as an undergraduate, and Rutgers, I think, has about 600,000 people right now in the Alumni Association. So my mechanism is, I'm going to have the Rutgers Alumni Association, and I contribute to the Rutgers Foundation, publish a small article, put a small blurb in, offer my free workshop, and I would suspect that 1% will buy books. And so 10% of 600,000 is 60,000, that's 600 books. That's what you have to do to show about a $10,000 book sale the first year and make a publisher extremely happy with you. Then you want to put in a sample chapter. A sample chapter shouldn't be the first because the first usually sets up the book. So the sample chapter could be chapter 6 or 8, doesn't matter, except it has to have punch. It has to have how-to, and it has to have social proof. So the publisher wants to see what your voice is, and the publisher also wants to see, is there something in it for the reader of great value that the reader can't afford not to know? The next, mention what you consider the lengths to be. I talked about the number of chapters. So will you have 10, 15-page chapters? Will you have 27-page chapters? Will you have 5, and so forth? Believe it or not, it's important to have chapters that are about the same size, not a long one followed by a short one or vice versa. These days, again, publishers are looking for about 150 double-spaced pages, or figure about 50,000 words, more or less. Next to last, or as we say, penultimate, which most people use wrong, about the author. Have your bio in there. And don't have it as a promotional piece. Have your bio in there in terms of your credentials, who you are, and why you're the right person to write this book. You're not trying to sell anything, you're just trying to sell yourself. And then finally, you want to send this either to an agent or to the acquisition editors of publishers who publish books in your genre. Now, how do you do that? Easy. I mean, don't forget, if it's your first book even, everybody's had a first book. I had a first book. My first book was published with a partner in 1988, The Innovation Formula. It's still sold on Amazon. So everybody has a first book. Don't sweat it. But you want to make sure that you talk to people you know who have books published. Ask them if they'll introduce you to their agent. Ask them if they'll introduce you to their publisher. Make a cold contact, at least a lukewarm contact. And there you have it, 12 steps on how to write a winning book proposal. Go for it.